Imagine this. The lights go down at Etihad Arena. That trademark roar rolls over the floor like thunder. And before the echo fades, you hear it. Boers is back. Just weeks removed from drowning a champion under relentless top control, Khamzat Chimaev could be turning around at record speed to defend his new middleweight crown in Abu Dhabi. Is it locked? Not yet. But the smoke is thick enough to talk fire. And tonight we're following the trail. What's real? What's rumor? And why this might be the most perfect storm the UFC could book this fall. Here's the baseline truth you can hang your hat on. UFC 321 is set for Saturday, October 25th, 2025 at Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi, headlined by Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. That piece is official. Date, venue, and heavyweight title on top are all public facing and live. If Khamzat slides in, it's as an addition to an event that already has championship shine and a built-in MENA fan base that adores him. That matters, because when a superstar fits the local market, the UFC loves to stack the deck. Now let's talk about why the chatter even started. At UFC 319, Khamzat didn't just win, he took Dricus du Plessis' belt with a 50-44 sweep on all 3 cards, leaning into a smothering, grind-you-down game that made 5 rounds feel like 5 hours for the man underneath. The performance was less about flash and more about inevitability. Takedown chains, mat returns, cross-wrist rides, that heavy blanketing pressure that steals hope before it steals points. That's the kind of win that makes a champion itch to do it again quickly, and it's the kind of win that gives the promotion options. The spark that turns buzz into a rumor cycle is always the same, a fighter saying, "I can go." Khamzat has already put that on record. No injuries, ready to fight in Abu Dhabi. While Dana White, doing what Dana does, teased that he'd consider it as the matchmaking meetings get underway. That's not about agreement. It's the kind of green light that says, if the pieces line up, we're game. Translation: medicals, opponent readiness, and timing. If you've followed this sport long enough, you know that's the holy trinity. Still, the fact the words were said matters. It sets the temperature. It gives fans permission to dream. So who in the world steps into that fire on 5 to 8 weeks notice? There are 3 realistic lanes, and they all come with narrative juice. First, the most straightforward path. Paris on September 6 is headlined by Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho. Winner emerges with momentum, spotlight, and a clean marketing line into Abu Dhabi. Fresh off a statement in Paris, straight into a title shot. It's neat, it's tidy, it ties 2 international markets the UFC cares about. The only snag is the calendar. Paris to Abu Dhabi gives the winner a razor-thin turnaround for a full camp. But if the Paris winner finishes early and takes no damage, don't be shocked if they throw their hand up on the mic and dare the champ. Fighters have said yes to wilder things with less time. Lane 2 is the most dramatic. Renier de Ridder, yes, the longtime double champ turned UFC middleweight, is set to headline Vancouver on October 18th against Anthony Hernandez, a surging high-pressure nightmare in his own right. The curveball? De Ridder has already said the quiet part out loud. Send the contract as early as UFC 321 if everything aligns. That's a veteran teasing a gamble. Fight October 18th and then jump a week later would be absurd. So the far more logical read is this: win impressively in Vancouver, call your shot for the very next opportunity, or be on standby if the Abu Dhabi pieces fall in a weird way. It's a long shot for 321 specifically, but it absolutely fuels the rumor mill because it's a new name with a championship past calling for the scariest fight in the division, and the UFC loves fresh theater. Lane 3 is the wild card, a known name who's healthy, ranked, and willing to take a short notice shot at immortality. This is where matchmaking magic happens behind closed doors. If the Paris main event turns into a war and both men need time, and if Vancouver plays out as scheduled, the UFC could ring someone with the right mix of profile and style to sell Abu Dhabi. Nobody wanted it, he said yes. Those 6 words have launched careers. Let's cut into the stylistics. If it's Imavov, you're looking at a rangy, patient striker with crisp counterpunching and underrated defensive wrestling. The kind of guy who can punish level changes if he's seeing them. Against Boers, that patience has to be tempered by urgency, because if you let Khamzat walk you down to the fence line, the takedown threat multiplies, and techniques like the single to high crotch chain or the knee tap off an underhook start to snowball. Imavov's best chance is early and clean. Establish the jab, keep his feet moving, and force Khamzat to shoot from farther away where first layer sprawls matter. If he's still fresh in rounds 4 and 5, that's a moral victory. It means he's kept the fight in the percentages he likes. Baralho is a different problem, and frankly, the more chaotic one. He's a pressure-minded switch hitter who can kick to all levels and who loves to close range behind awkward rhythms. That can be a blessing and a curse. On one hand, chaos can disrupt Khamzat's timing early. On the other, closing range on boars without winning the underhook battle is a ticket to a mat return. Where Kaio intrigues me is the scramble layer. He's not resigned to bottom. If he can pop hips, fight hands, and threaten the stand-up immediately, he can force Khamzat to work at a higher clip than he prefers. But as we saw at 319, higher clip for boars still looks like long stretches of control, wrist rides, and a slow drip of despair on the scorecards. The de Ridder question is the chess match. RDR's pedigree is a different kind of grappling threat than most UFC middles. Long levers, suffocating back control, and an instinct for positional choke hunting. That sort of game either tests Khamzat in the trench he loves, or it backfires when he realizes he's wrestling someone who doesn't break under the first wave. To make that interesting, Rainier would need to win collar ties in the open and use frames like weapons, never accepting head position losses for more than a second. For boars, the path is all about discipline. No greedy transitions, no diving on half-baked submissions, just system wrestling until the other man's lungs start bargaining with his brain. If that fight ever happens, Abu Dhabi or not, it's a pure grappler's clinic. Zoom out from tactics to business. Why Abu Dhabi makes perfect sense is not just Khamzat's popularity, it's the way the card stacks star power. Heavyweight title fights sell themselves, but pairing them with a middleweight title defense from one of the sport's fastest rising names transforms the event from a destination into a cultural moment. Etihad Arena has become the UFC's second home. The crowd knows boars, knows the howl, knows the avalanche style. If you're designing a poster that lives on the internet for years, this is how you do it. Double gold at the top, international stakes everywhere else. That's why Dana's "will consider it" is not a throwaway line. He understands how to turn a hot post fight into a hotter pre-sale. But let's be adults about the risks. Quick turnarounds are romantic until they're not. Weight management and back-to-backs is hard. Tiny injuries you ignore to make the walk become big injuries in the next camp. And politically, the division is queuing up. Duplessis will talk revenge. The Paris winner will demand his moment. Vancouver's headliner could crash the party with a statement. The UFC likes order when it's convenient and chaos when it sells. If the path of least resistance is also the path of biggest numbers, you can guess which one gets picked. It's worth revisiting how 319 ended, because that tells you what the matchmakers believe today. There was controversy, stand-ups from Mark Goddard that some fighters and analysts didn't love, but none of it changed the truth that Khamzat won the minutes, controlled the rounds, and walked away the better man that night. He didn't need a finish, he needed to make a point, and he did, loudly. The afterglow of a one-sided decision like that is exactly when champions feel invincible, and invincible minds volunteer for short-notice dances in October. That's the psychology of rumor, a dominant win that makes the next one feel inevitable. If you're Dreykus, the story you pitch is simple. I can do better. Maybe the cut fell off, maybe the reads came too late, maybe the camp didn't prepare enough for the chain after the first shot. If he wants that rematch sooner than later, he'll need to make a public case that he can deny level changes and punish cage pins. Otherwise, he might need one statement win while the belt cycles through another name. Either way, his voice will be in the conversation because champions who lose and own it, no excuses, eyes forward, tend to find the camera quickly. And yes, he's already speaking again after the loss, framing the comeback. That matters to the UFC. They love a man who sells the next chapter the morning after. Let's answer the big question you actually care about. If the UFC calls tomorrow, does Khamzat fight at UFC 321? The honest answer is that all the incentives point to yes, with one big caveat: there has to be a dance partner who can sign and sell it immediately. The Paris winner is the cleanest plug and play if the fight is low damage and the mic call out is strong. If not, the promotion might pivot to a ranked name that's healthy and happy to gamble on short notice. De Ridder's send the contract energy raises the drama, but Vancouver to Abu Dhabi in a week is fantasy. A dominant RDR win there sets him up for the next slot. Not this one. From the fan perspective, here's what to watch like a hawk. First, that Paris main event, how it ends, what the post-fight sounds like, whether either man says Abu Dhabi, I'm ready. Second, your Vancouver headliner. If Rainier runs through Hernandez in 1 or 2, his call-out could be the loudest middleweight soundbite of the fall. Third, listen for Dana's tone in media scrums in the next 2 weeks. Not the words, his tone. When a fight is close, he gets cryptic in a specific way. You've heard it before. As for the fight itself, if it's made, the film says you're betting against a title force. Khamzat's game is not complicated, it's profound. It takes away options and air. It makes brave men question math. But the sport always changes when someone figures out the right lever to pull. Maybe it's Imavov's footwork, maybe it's Baralio's chaos, maybe it's De Ridder's counters in the clinch. That's why we watch. That's why we argue on the internet and stare at the poster like it's art. Because every inevitable king gets surprised eventually, and Abu Dhabi loves a twist. Quick disclaimer before we close. Nothing is official until the UFC flashes a graphic and a fighter posts a signed bout agreement photo with a grin. Rumors are fun, but reality is gonna catch up fast over the next 2 weeks as Paris plays out and booking meetings happen. If it lands, you'll hear it everywhere at once. If it doesn't, remember this conversation, because the next month after 321 will still be built around Khamzat's first title defense. Whether it's October 25th in Abu Dhabi or soon after, the division is moving because a new champion makes everything urgent. So here's your call to action. Drop a comment with the opponent you want in Abu Dhabi and the exact round you think it ends. If you're riding with Imavov, give me the jab and pivot sequence that cracks the code. If you're on the Baralio train, tell me the scramble that flips the script. And if you're pulling for De Ridder down the road, sketch the clinch where you think the fight hinges. Subscribe if you want the deep dives. We're breaking down Paris fight week round by round, and then we're going straight into Vancouver with a magnifying glass. If Boers is back at 321, we'll be here with the full tactical preview the second the ink dries. Until then, breathe, enjoy the rumor season, and keep one eye on the Etihad Arena clock.